traditional craft and a more technological one. And I look at the key finding or key lesson. I have to say that looking at higher education and the role of higher education, and in particular talking about lecturer, teacher, trainers, the last 2 years were moments of reckoning, and in particular for one reason. We recognized that all our knowledge was not enough. Not enough in pedagogy, not the paradigm concerning the transfer of knowledge, and we felt lost. Now, making sense of this sense of loss, I think is important. This was because we were not that fast in using Zoom, Meets, or other things. No. Rather because the need for knowledge was changed dramatically in just few weeks. And we discovered that our students were not requiring any more knowledge in terms of things to do and how to do, but rather they were asking for affection. So when we speak about new humanism, I think this is the lesson. We have to rethink the role of the trainer. Not as someone that is able to pour knowledge in a fast way to someone else, but rather like, let's say, okay, it sounds creepy in English, but let's say Big Brother. I'm not referring to 1984 for sure, but this kind of really very emotional, very human part that is not in higher education. This is I mean, I trained nurses for that. I train high school and elementary teacher thinking you have to think about also the psychological well-being. This was not in the training for higher education. We are still anchored in a paradigm that is the whole paradigm that we are the source of knowledge. No. Not anymore. There are other sources of knowledge. We recognize this fact. We recognize the fact there are so many other resources online and people can access. The people need the guidance. The guidance we can give is about ourselves, our experience, our human part, and this is something that is valuable, and we have to reconsider this part. So I think this is. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have just housekeeping information. If someone still would like to enjoy a coffee or a cookie, there are some waiting for you at the main entrance, okay, just here. Don't go all together, but just in case. Voila, and now I disappear. Excellent, 3 minutes, I love you.
Thank you, Filippo. Yes, it is really very good message, the changing role of trainer, which are no longer the knowledge, the main knowledge source. This actually changes the whole paradigm of education. It's not only for teacher itself, the whole system, I think. Okay, now I move to Claudia. What would you say about the 3 questions? Choose any of them.
Well, since I come from a company which does exclusively commissioned research, the question whether people actually listen to what they pay for is the most interesting. My experience is the more specific the question, the more willingness there is to listen to the answer, provided you don't have preconceived notions of what you want to hear. But even there, you have the possibility to frame your message in a way that it sounds encouraging rather than discouraging. So to give you an example, just recently we were commissioned by University of Applied Science to research into future skills needs in the area of technical facility management. That was before the outbreak of the Ukraine war. And results, which were basically very encouraging. There's a high need and there's very specific needs. fed directly into curriculum development. On the other hand, we also take part in tenders in European programs. For example, recently completed a study on the future of VET. Here the questions are more general, and the uptake is not all that easy to see because there's no quick follow-up reaction. Nevertheless, it serves as background information for policymakers, and even there, at times, you might see that it has direct impact at national level. For example, if a study like this one identifies very specific deficits in some member states, this might trigger a reaction at national level. Policymakers becoming aware of it and then, for example, either spending national money or applying for European funding to address those specific deficits. So it very much depends on the situation, but I guess the threshold to accept advice if you pay for it is pretty low.
Well, in fact, I brought this, and they didn't allow me to use it. I wanted to make my show, so now I show it. I wanted to stop them, but now, I mean, you are behaving very well. I'm very proud of this panel. I also wanted to give some time to Woman to bring back the cup and take again. So we keep the rhythm. Voila, Woman, floor is back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think giving encouraging results rather than these depressing ones helps for the policymakers to listen to you. I understand from your speech. And another one is, of course, give the information in the format that they can absorb. Dissemination, but the type of format of dissemination. Well, by the way, I just want to remind that these questions are also very valid for you. Please start preparing your comments, reactions, and questions, because after the panelists, it will come on you. Now, let me turn to Tamar. What would you say for this second round?
I think I will respond to the second and third question at once. So I continue the idea of my neighbor that we have to transform our practices. Of course, from mentorship to friendship and facilitation is absolutely valid, and I agree with that. But we also have to transform our schools, the providers of skills. They have to find themselves in the new world as not only the centers where the study process is facilitated, the people come from 9 to 3 and then leave, but they have to find themselves in this world as the hubs, as the development hubs. And they provide the diversified services and diversified opportunities for the people in different age, for their personal development, for their integration, for their social stability, for their future career, for their success. I mean, I think in Georgia, for instance, we struggle with that because the schools are, they think that they have to provide only the programs and that's it. If the student has the problem, personal or social, then they have to find the support somewhere else. And I think we need to think about it as well, because the modern citizen needs more than only the lesson, well-organized the lesson. So that's the second point, to transform the schools into the development hubs. I would call it like this. And also, I think the flexibility that's also the lesson for the policymakers. We need to make our ties a bit loose. I mean, we need to bring more flexibility in the processes to create diversified formats for the partnership between many stakeholders, because skills is the area where there are a lot of stakeholders involved. There should be a lot of stakeholders involved, and it should be open floor for ideas, for new initiatives from different perspectives to be adopted and to be introduced. And finally, the mechanisms and the diversity we suggest in terms of programs and services should be very, very broad. We have to go more in the direction of non-formal, or to somehow to blur the borders between the formal and non-formal, because to be frank, the most adaptive to the modern learning is the non-formal education. So as many characteristics and as many elements we take from the non-formal education and make our formal courses and menu diversified, as closer we go to our final beneficiaries, and as many offerings we have to the sectors we work with. And that's the answer for the traditional, non-traditional. For instance, when we started now the revision of qualifications, and we started to introduce we have formalized the short-term trainings, the certification courses, and we push a lot of energy on that, put a lot of energy in this field. We found that many different sectors, organized sectors, have different expectations and needs. So if they have a long list to choose from, flexibility will be there, and they will have whatever they need from sector to sector. So I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamar. Yes, another further contribution to the main, very much the main idea of adaptability, again, to the new learner profile, basically, but also to the new trainers' profiles and school infrastructure in general. So now I am turning to Stavrola. What do you say for your part?
Thank you. I will actually choose policies because as a European agency, we are conducting research, we are agencies like you are, we are conducting research across Europe. So when we do research, when we start our research, our first research question is, who is going to be interested in what we are going to do? Who? Which of the stakeholders and why? If we can't answer that question, we can't continue with anything. Even if the research we are planning is the most interesting one in the world, but if the stakeholders are not interested in getting an answer to that, it's not relevant anymore. It's not relevant. So this is the starting point. Then how our research is used in policy making. We are collecting data. We are producing our own surveys. We are having the European Working Conditions Survey, the European Companies Survey. We are asking managers across Europe, more than 30,000 managers in Europe, to ask them about the work environment, how the work environment is, what kind of skills policies, how much training they provide, how employees are involved in that. We also have the European Quality of Life Survey, where we ask citizens about their own conditions, the living conditions. Plus, a latest addition was the e-survey that we conducted, in 2020, when the COVID-19 broke in Europe. We wanted to know how citizens cope. And we looked also into non-pharmaceutical interventions that are taken by various countries. So all of this data, how are these used? First of all, we are doing a comparative analysis, not just one country only, or one country at a time, but we are comparing countries. We are looking at the situation, and then the results are used by the European institutions, by the European Commission. They are used by the European Parliament. They are using it for soft and hard forms of intervention. The soft part would be like, communication form. It would be something like, action plans that we plan at the European level. And there, you don't need to impose things, but you say, this is an action plan. Let's pool our sources together. And then they use our data. And if it is hard evidence, like, directives, then they take the evidence. What have we found so far about this? What do we know about that? What we need to do as Europe? And then individual countries need to be, others a little bit more prescriptive, more detailed in what they do, others a bit less. And then, of course, we are talking to social partners at the European level and at the national level, and they take these lessons as well to see what the businesses, what the business associations, the employers' organizations, the trade unions organizations can do about that, because they also have a role to play. If workplace practices are not great in some countries or across Europe, then we need to take action. It's not just the government that needs to do things, or to take actions. It's not just regulation, but there are activities, there are policies, the HR managers can introduce, or how the works councils or the trade unions can negotiate training, for instance, so that many workers can participate in that training. So in a few words, that's what I would say. And the European Parliament, of course, in their resolution, they take the outcomes of our findings seriously, and then come up with some recommendations, some suggestions. And the lessons learned from that, as an organization, we're a bit different than others, because we use the evidence in order to provide some sort of suggestions. But we also learned our lesson from that ourselves, and we are also redeveloping our learning and development strategy for our own organization. We need to be prepared for the future. And we are members of an EU network of other agencies where we are looking into how we can all be prepared for a future crisis. What can we do? What are the weak signals we get from our environment? Do we get any signals? Are they serious or not? If they are not serious, okay, we'll let them, lie there. But if some of them that create a pattern, then perhaps we, as all EU agencies, need to do something about it. Let's look at them more seriously. So this is some of the actions we take at EU level with other EU agencies. And then, of course, it's about the system, the knowledge system we have. Does this knowledge system we have in place, that has been in place for so many years, adequate for the current conditions? We're having huge challenges, the green challenge, the digital challenge. Is the knowledge system adequate? Do we all have the skills? Are the skills defined in the same way as they were defined before? And people talked about communication. We have hybrid work. How do we communicate? So it has been noted among, it has been reported to us. People during telecommunication, when they are communicating through these media, are not so nice. And perhaps we need to see how we can change our behavior sometimes. So I think, there are many lessons, but I will stop here. Thank you. I saw her.
No, but now really, I'm the ghost of the opera. Whenever I come, people is just terrified. Do you think we can open the floor to get some questions?
Yes, and also contributions and experiences on the topic, please.
Okay, so you have one microphone every 2 tables. So it's important that the microphone with the number goes to the other number of tables. So when you take the microphone, can you let me know your number?
7.
Okay, so you do your question, then you put it back, and then we have a question here from Ellie, but you have already the microphone. Floor is yours. Short question always lead to short answers. Thanks a lot.
I have a comment or contribution to the issue we have discussed. And I think that there are 2 points which are important for Georgia, but maybe for other countries as well. And they are more related to the question concerning what lessons we learned. But there are also general issues. The first one is about usage of digital skills. It's a very modern issue now in Georgia and in many countries, improving the digital skills, etc., etc. But we know that our children, they know the digital skills soon after the birth, I think. In 1-year child could deal with the mobile maybe better than we. But important is to teach our children in school to use the digital skills for the improving of their education and qualification. I think this is a problem still, because even pandemic show that there are many people complaining about decreasing of the quality of education during the pandemic due to Zoom teaching and etc. It was important, it's better than nothing, but many students complain about it. So we maybe should rethink about issues related to the proper usage of digital skills for practical issues, focus it on the fulfilling of the new skills and increasing the education. And the second point, which I also want to use chance and say, is also issue which is a little bit forgotten. It was very under wide discussion before, but now it's, by my opinion, a little bit forgetting in my country, maybe, I don't know. It's issue related to the recognition of existing skills received through informal education, by chances having due to migration or own attempt to increase this education. I think we should think about modern systems of curriculum for recognition of these skills, because there are many people having this skill actually that could not prove it due to the existing system of modeling for this. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask you your name, organization and country, and the same will apply?
I'm Irina Badurashvili, researcher from Georgia. I am the director of the Georgian Center of Population Research, but I am acting as an independent expert on the different issues related to employment and skills.
Thank you. We need to try to be very short, so we give enough time to everyone. But I know you, Eli, but you need to introduce yourself. Name, organization, country, question or comment. And then we see if we need the input of our panelists.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'll make it short. My name is Eli Eisenberg. I'm from the Samuel Neiman Institute in Israel, at the Technion University. What I want to say, this morning you started to see what should I anticipate in the future about skills. I can tell you from the research we've done at the Samuel Neiman Institute, since 1970, we know exactly what should be the skills of the 21st century. Since it's 52 years already, and we're already one quarter in the 21st century. The big problem is, the challenge is, that in education we know exactly what we should do, but we don't implement it. And we need to bridge this gap. We do it in financial system, we do it in agriculture, we do it in education. We move very, very slowly, and we need to bridge the gap. So the challenge is, how do we manage the change? And one remark I want to follow is the evaluation must be changed to evaluate skills. When you evaluate somebody, he puts his words, he do actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you. You know what we always say, that actually education is like an elephant and the labor market is like a gazelle. So actually, is there any immediate reaction from the panel? The panel, the moderator.
Yeah, if you would like to answer or add something,
Yeah,
we can take
actually, when I was talking on the diversity of services and the long list, long menu, to choose the recognition was, of course, the part of it. And in Georgia, for instance, it's already set up and working, but not so demanding at the moment from the labor market side. But I think it is expected that demand grows. But beyond that, also absolutely, its evaluation is very important to see where do we stand, and the best way of evaluation is evaluation of our product, let's say so. Yes, and in this regard, we also have we are introducing now the final qualification exams and the diversified measurement instruments. But in fact, again, to the digital, what Irina was mentioning, it's very important that we as well are becoming more, we are using as policymakers and as a system, we also using the digital tools and skills, automation of processes. It's again linked with the flexibility and speed to come after the gazelle,
The gazelle.
quickly, because if we have a lot of tools digitalized, it's time saving, resource saving, and I think all the countries have to have it in their policy agendas to quickly digitalize ourselves as well. I mean, systemic processes.
Okay, thank you so much, Tamar. Would you allow me to stop just for a second, because we got a few questions also from the from the participants in streaming. So, Julia, we cherry pick one. So, Julia.
Yes. Hello, everyone who is following in streaming. We have viewers from Tajikistan, Greece, Ukraine, Northern Macedonia, Georgia, Nigeria, and many other countries. Thank you for watching. I picked one question from Khaled Abu Laban from Facebook, and he is saying, there are serious challenges facing refugees in finding appropriate opportunities due to their limited skills and qualifications in relation to the requirements of the labor market, especially for vulnerable groups. What are the immediate and long-term solutions for them? Thank you.
Grazie, Julia. Who take it?
Well, this is
the question.
the question. Is there anyone who would like to try? Or it remains to me? You want to say something?
May I? Yeah. Just taking from the trees. First of all, in the 1970s, we had a quite clear idea of what the 21st century should look like. And this was a moment of strong ideas about future, different politics for sure, but it was strong, this idea that we had a clear path ahead. Nowadays we see fear, and still, I think this is actually the first point in the answer. We have to reshape our idea of future, so that actually we can say what are the skills we need. And I think that this is a level that predates the level of education. What is the level, how our sons and grandsons should live in our future in 2050, in 2070, in 2080. This is an answer we don't want to answer, it seems to me, at least as a public. Going back to the first point and about digital skills, yes, we need them, and we have to implement them in the curricula, but we should break free from the cage of the user. And say, what I mean is, when I see the curriculum in digital education or use of digital resources, is always a reiteration of the idea of the student as a user of some software. So we ended up making a fantastic class of use of Excel 97 in 2000 or something like that. I experienced them, so I can make an example, direct life. We should rethink how to explain and how to create interaction with the digital resources, based probably on problem solving, based on the idea that the students are definitely creative agents, and they can use definitely more creative ways the tools that they have in front of them than us. Then there are some tools that need some training, like statistical tools and so on and so forth, but this is something else. When we speak about the digital skills, I think that we have to change the paradigm. And about recognition of skills is actually tying with the question concerning migrants. First of all, the question is, what are the migrants in general? Is it a problem? No. They are resources. This is something it's not public domain, and this is, I think, the problem, because with that answer, we can actually find a way through. Insofar we continue to consider migrants as a crisis, as a problem, as someone else, the investor, the Gog and Magog, we are continuing to have barriers there, and we continue to reproduce the barriers. So the point is that these are human capital, cultural capital, and social capital, and economic capital that can be pumped into the Europe and create new enterprises, create new jobs, families, life, feelings. This is the future. This is why we have to rethink about recognition, and this is why we have just empowered them a bit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Allora, no, because now I stick to the time to give you time to talk. Now you have to talk. Don't disappoint me. Allora, we have a question here. Is there, okay, I go first to the gentleman because we had already a question from Discount, and then, okay. Okay.
My name is Florence, Dr. Florence Ardan. I'm from the Ministry of Education in Israel. I am the National Pedagogical Counselor at the Administration of Technology. We are talking about skills in the future. It's very important, but it's very hard. And from all the discussions, I had the feeling that we all know that it's difficult to decide what are the skills that are needed in the future. It's important to evaluate it, but we really don't know. In our ministry, we are very practical. We say, what are the skills that are needed today? We are now at the end of a scholar year, you know. Kids are coming back, on vacation, and we are starting September the 1st, a new scholar year. What are the skills? And I'm asking you, maybe I can learn a lot from what you know, that are needed at the beginning of the next scholar year. What we need to give to our students to make sure that they are prepared for the life that they are living today. And maybe if we can have a good answer from that, we will find the skills of the future. But we know in our ministry we have students from 3-year-old until 18 years old. You know, we have all the students in our system. And we are thinking what at each age they need. What are the skills that they need? For example, just one thing, and then I'll give you...
have 30 seconds.
Kindergarten, we have decided to teach programming. You know, to teach programming at kindergarten. This is a new decision and you are working on. But I will be very happy if you can help and tell us what do you think are the skills that are needed today or in 3 months. Thank you.
Okay, we have a golden question for the golden people. The floor is yours.
Yes, I think I will give the floor to Stavrola because she wanted to comment.
She's a brave art.
Yes. Thank you. There were several good points that were made and very good answers that have already been provided. With the skills that we need today. This is always very good. You need to know what are the skills you need today because then you can respond very quickly. But also it is important if you really, as a society, we want to see what is going, how we are going to respond to future challenges. We need to see what kind of skills we will need in the future. Foresights always help us because, for instance, if we want to see what will be the future of work in 30 years from now, 40 years from now, we are not going to be very, precise. This is going to be the future, in 30 years, from 40 years. No, but we're going to think, okay, how is our world changing? What is the likelihood of this becoming obsolete and this becoming more prevalent? How is our training system prepared? Is the training system prepared? Are the businesses prepared for that? Are the workers? Do the trade unions, encourage, workers also to take up training? Is the working environment, supporting, this learning exercise within the work environment? Because you don't always learn through training, formal training. You don't always send, workers, people, to training institutes to learn. They learn from work. They learn from other colleagues. They learn from trial and error. And that's very, very valuable lessons. During the pandemic, we also saw that young people started their first job and they're working remotely. They lost that experience that, workers have when they start their first job. They couldn't speak with the colleagues, with other more senior colleagues at work to see, how do you do this? What is the culture in this organization? And how do you do and why do you do these things here and not in the other organization? So these are important lessons you learn when you are working together. So using a little bit our foresight, and I think we need to develop our foresight methodologies in order to see how we as stakeholders, as governments, as social partners respond to that. Because if there is a challenge, then we will know, okay, in this case, we'll need to speak to both sides and see how they can develop practices together.
Thank you. You see that by magic, whenever I appear fresh, mamma mia. Allora, there was a question there, the gentleman, and just look at the number of the table for the microphone. Julia? Yes, we have first a question here, and then to the lady. Or it goes to the lady and then to the gentleman.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Ilkin Nazarov from Azerbaijan.
I'm sorry, I have just an information for those following in streaming. You don't see the people, but it exists. Actually, you only see us on the stage because we have only a fixed camera, but not just for the streamers. There is people talking and asking questions. It's not an invention. It's not virtual reality, not yet. Floor is yours.
My
Thank
question
you.
is, we are talking about skills anticipation, etc. But it's a long time, yeah, this discussion can continue, but you know, the world of work is changing very fast. So, and it's impossible to anticipate. We can follow something. And my view is that it is very difficult to prepare society according to that. For me, the second issue is more important, and also I would like to know your views, because we have an education system and it's very conservative. And also we have this pandemic and war situation, and we know that demands change very fast. And we should have such proper infrastructure systems that very easier we can prepare the labor market according to this demand. But with the current approach, it is impossible. For example, one curricula, you need 1 year for the approval. In this way, how you can meet with labor market demands. So, and that's why during these last 2 years, I'm interested, how did you use decentralization and also to give more autonomy to the education system to meet with these demands? And what you think about this?
Okay. Allora, victims here. Super short,
Thank you. I think it's a key. I fully understand what are you talking about and what's the concern, because we are coming from the similar backgrounds, and our countries have this old Soviet heritage, and the systems were formed in the similar way. So these schools are strongly centralized and managed and governed from the center, and to some extent it is right now as it was. I think the very important element in that is the funding. How the funding system is organized and what is encouraged, what is the most important, which is expected from the school. If the emphasis goes on performance, on the quality, then they have to take over, the schools have to take over responsibility on themselves, and then the autonomy comes with responsibility. So in Georgia, for instance, we are revising now the funding system, and we are introducing performance-based funding, which will be measured. So the performance of the school will be measured according to their to many indicators. One of them will be employment status, school living coefficient, internal efficiency. There will be the partnership evaluated as well to the private companies, to the local governance, etc. It's a complex evaluation. And on the top of the basis funding, the schools will get the performance-based funding. It will stimulate their proactiveness, and it will stimulate decentralization, because decentralization is not only top-down process, it should be from the bottom. So we should incentivize and strengthen the providers, and then they will require more autonomy, and they will get more autonomy step by step, of course. It's an evolutionary process, I think.
Can I add also one small
If you look
thing?
at me like this, you know, like a small bird, of course you can.
Well, you know that there is and there will be always a time lag between the demands and the supply. I mean, education supply. Education, by definition, takes more time than changing jobs and changing occupations. But this doesn't mean that educators can still learn from the signals, future signals, some even general trends, because I don't think that we can predict everything in a very detailed way. There is no way that we can predict everything that would have happened. But we can predict the general trends and try to make the people ready for that. And then, of course, when the real things happen, people would be a bit more prepared than usual. And this is, I think, what we aim for. I stop.
Thank you so much. I think we take a last question from the ladies down there, and then we move to the following session. Floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. My question is regarding the rethinking the role of training process, skill acquirement process, regarding rethinking the role of a trainer and a student. And it's quite specific. Like, we know that we should rethink the concept of education. We've been talking about it for 20 years already, but still, what are about practices, especially scalable practices? Because I've talked to a lot of EdTech representatives, and they say that government education system is completely obsolete, and the only chance for you to get quality education is somewhere private. So, and these practices that prove to be successful, that are different from the traditional way of teaching process, that prove to be successful and that cannot be that are scalable, could any one of you, the panelists or someone, share those experiences? Like, we know the example of École 24 in France, like they did introduce completely peer learning, like basins and something. They shifted the process of education, and they are doing actually well. Students are learning from students more than from teachers. Any that experiences that could be scalable nationwide or something like that, please share that if you have that in any level of education, starting from early childhood to the tertiary, anything.
Can you just introduce yourself, just name, organization and country so we know
My
who
name
you are?
is Uljana Ospanova, Kazakhstan, Information Analytics Center.
Okay, nice to meet you. So, who would like to take this last challenge? Someone from the panel, who won before the concluding remarks? Someone here? Okay, I think he stays with the panel, but they are negotiating.
Yeah, and then I will.
Okay, they made deal?
Yes.
Deal, 3 minutes, go.
Since I come from Austria, let me mention one educational path that is frequently quoted as a success story, and that is apprenticeship training. Apprenticeship training, where people usually at the age of 15 start a very practical education and training at an organization or at a company that actually does a concrete job, for example, plumbing or electrical installations. And the young people learn at the workplace from their colleagues who have received additional training as an apprenticeship trainer. And this is combined with also some additional education at the school, a few hours per week. This provides you with a certain closeness to the labor market, but heavily depends, of course, on the quality of the company providing the trainer and of the individual trainers. So if they lag behind in technology and organization and all that, the training will not be so good. But if it is an interesting company that keeps up with modern requirements, it, I think, is a very good way of entering the labor market.
Thank you. Thank you. If I may add also one, on this specific question, one point. You know, many studies says that there are technical skills needed and then soft skills needed, right? And individuals, I mean learners by themselves, have to be more and more empowered, able to make decisions for their own future, because there are no longer all the jobs waiting for them. They maybe have to creating their own jobs, right? So what is being said on the technical skills, of course, there is an undeniable, very good practice, which is on the work-based learning, as we heard now from Claudia. But there are also very interesting trials on the learning of soft skills. This is generally starting from the very early level of education. I would say preschool education, and then primary and secondary education. By chance, I listened to some examples from different European countries, but what I can tell you on the essence of practice is that actually we need to focus more on all these aspects of social sciences that we ignore them now. You know, psychology, anthropology, behavioral science, all these for the, I don't know, for the engineers maybe they are crap, but they are as important as IT or engineering or medicine. Because changing the behaviors of individuals and making them empowered towards the labor market, but also towards the life in general, requires much more emphasis on self-confidence, for example, on how to take initiative or creating your own path. All these aspects require not a curricula with full of knowledge only, you know, history, this date, this war happened. No, we don't need to know the date of the war in the past. We need to know why it had happened and how it could be prevented, basically. So this is I think the new focus that are going from the new examples. But we can also discuss more on the details of these examples after the conference. I stop.
Yes. One word.
Tamara, look at me.
Very quick. Yes, and continuing what Umuhan was saying, I just want to put emphasis. We cannot close this panel without saying that the most important, I think, skill for the future is entrepreneurial competence, because the human being was created as a creator, as an inventor, as the one who improves something. So if we teach or acquire the skills of improving, innovating, I think the students can succeed in their career further. And therefore, for this, a very good example is the coding, the most important skill. For the coders, you need only to put the basis, the basic technical skills, and the rest lies on self-confidence and invention capacity and ability of the person. So I think we have to put more emphasis on that, and I think the modern generation can do the rest. Thank you.
Okay, Stavrula promised me a cup of champagne to talk 2 more minutes. Did you?
In my bag, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I
excellent.
brought it already.
Okay, so for a cup of champagne, 2 minutes Stavrula, and then we move to the following session.
You're very kind, thank you, very generous. So actually, I was just inspired by what Tamar said earlier regarding the bottom-up and the top-down and the bottom-up and the bottom-up approach, because both of them are essential. They are extremely useful. In our European company survey, we asked managers about the matching of the skills. Do the workers have, the skills that you need? So overall in Europe, we found a good match. But there is also some overskilling and underskilling that, they need to take into consideration. But then the point I wanted to make is that there is a lot of potential. If there isn't, the skill outside in the labor market, there is a lot that can be done within the company, at the workplace level, in order to develop that skill that is missing. There are employees who are there who have the capacity. And then the other thing we noticed is that, when you have a comprehensive strategy of training, then you are more likely to be, innovative and to have more digitalization within the organization. So.
Impossible to stop this panel, but we made it. Okay, a big applause to Stavrula, Tamar, Claudia, Michele Filippo, and to Rodion, who joined us remotely. So I thank you very much. You go, I stay. That's the rule of life. What to say? Thank you. Thanks a lot. So while actually we are thanking again our panelists, we also thank the participants that were following us in streaming, because actually the virtual part ends here. So thank you so much for being with us, for the question, and please stay tuned on our social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter channels, whatever. Francesca, don't be shy, join me. And now, what do we have? Allora. We said at the beginning, you will leave Pollenzo by saying allora. I'm telling you. So, actually we wanted to set the scene, and we hope we made it somehow, and I think we did actually. But now we have to go to the more gritty, meaty part. So we want to have an hackathon. As I said, there will be, come with me. From the Regia, shall we stay here or shall we stay at the lectern? Okay, silence. Okay. Giusto, è vero, there is no streaming anymore. So we said, okay, finally I can walk. Evviva. Okay, allora, you know that for an hackathon, before thinking about the solutions, you need the challenges. So those are challenges. We have 3 challenges, 6 groups. More details will follow, but I will pass the floor immediately to Francesca to guide us through the challenge. This is particularly important for you, because after this presentation, after the lunch, etc., we'll tell you what comes next, you will have to choose which challenge you want to work with your group. So pay, I know it's the end of the morning, but pay the best attention ever to these 3 challenges, to the vision, to the challenge, because this will allow you to do the right choice and to contribute to what you are best at. Okay? So be with us. Francesca, please enlighten us.
Thank you, Simona. Thanks a lot. Me again. Sorry for coming back again in the morning. So basically, this is the challenging part. Simona will tell you about the rules of the hackathon in the afternoon. We didn't want to scare you too much before lunch, so we decided to start with the content side of the hackathon. You know that when you have made your registration for this event, we ask you about your topics of preference. So what were the topics in which you were most interested? And based on your replies, we have selected 3 main